Next stage of the Pickems are here, and listen, folks, I'm going to be honest, I messed up this first stage. I think going for the favorites here is the play in the future. I think I've learned that. I will hold my hands up and say that. And let's just move swiftly on to the next stage where we can talk about which teams are going where. Let's start with 3-0. I think there's a couple of teams you can choose between. Firstly, FaZe are the highest seed here. I haven't been crazy impressed by them, but they generally have a pretty solid level. I would expect them certainly to make it through, and they have to be in the running for the best spot. I also think that another team, obviously Spirit, they've been really good lately, and I just think in BO1s and in this sort of format, they're the most likely team to just hit good form and have massive performances from someone like Donk. So for me, I think you kind of have to put Spirit in 3-0. I think I back them against the majority of the teams here, especially in a BO1 format. I think they're unlikely to take too many wild losses. So for me, Spirit are in there. Another team you definitely can consider, there's a few more. I actually think G2 will be underrated by some people. I think they're in pretty decent form right now. They have not been bad at all. They've only really been losing against really good teams. And I'm just waiting for the tournament where Hunter steps up. Because if Hunter, who's got a bit more freedom on T side now, can really step up, I actually think this team is in contention to win it all for me. I genuinely think they're that good. I think Na'Vi are a team you can absolutely consider here. Just a very solid squad, but maybe just slightly below some of these others. Vitality, obviously a team to consider. They haven't been in great form lately, though. I just feel like they could drop a best of one, just because, you know, if ZywOo has a slightly quieter map, suddenly the firepower can be a little missing. Spinx has actually been in bad form lately. I expect that to pick up, but still a little sketchy. I do think FaZe are the safest pick here. Oh, and I also think MOUZ have a pretty good run, especially if the favorites win in the opening round. They could get complexity in the second round, and that could put them in a pretty good position, and they're a very solid team. I think the safest pick is FaZe. I think most people will go FaZe, but I actually think in this stage of the tournament, I back G2 more. I just think having players like Nico and m0NESY is already huge. I don't think FaZe have their go-to guy as much, especially because Rops hasn't been quite as good lately. And so this may feel a little risky, especially because the one thing you need to consider, if you're picking G2, they are quite low-seeded. So there is a good chance they might play Spirit in the second round or FaZe in the second round. And if that happens, yeah, this pick is going to seem silly. But I honestly think this team can beat pretty much anyone else here, even Spirit in theory. So I back G2. I just have that feeling that they're coming together right now at the right time. And I'm probably a bit higher in them than other people, but that's just where I'm at right now. I think for the rest of the teams, there's quite a few favorites that should go straight through. So Na'Vi, they're pretty damn solid. Alexi B is always a good caller, and there is enough talent here to make it. Wonderful is pretty damn good with the AWP, and all you need is for Bit to start playing well, and suddenly you are really cooking with gas on that team. VP, very plucky team, very plucky team. They scream to me of a team who will drop 1 or maybe 2 games in this opening stage, but at the same time, they always grind out wins. They're very likely to make it through this stage. They just have that ability, especially against some of these teams who actually aren't as experienced as you might expect. Outside of like the top 6 teams, the experience of these squads and the solidity of them is a little questionable. All right, FaZe, they're obviously, you know, favorites to make it through here. They're just a very structured team. I will say, actually, maybe structured team isn't the word for it. I feel like Karrigan's been calling this team a little too loose, and that's the one reason why I don't have as much faith in them. But I mean, the team play elements are there in general. So I want to see what Karrigan looks like individually and also with the calling. But overall, that they have the talent to make it through for sure. Vitality, definitely in there. Have been a little underwhelmed by m0NESY, have to say. Have been a tad bit underwhelmed. But overall, I don't think Spinx will continue being bad. He hasn't played for a while. A lot of the teams in this stage haven't played for like a month. But at the same time, I saw Spinx's quality at the end of last year. He was basically the only lurker in the world that could actually really go toe-to-toe with Rops in certain situations. He was that good. And I expect that Spinx to come back. I really do. So I will put them here. I think Flames is also the one that's maybe a bit hit or miss, but I still think they have enough. And then I think the next 2 spots are pretty interesting. For me, MOUZ are actually like a pretty cert team to make it through. Shuhei's just so solid. Yimpat is crazy for how young he is. This guy is so cool under pressure as well. And I think even though they're a young team, they've proven that they don't really get phased by the big moments. And so for me, that makes a big difference on this team. The one thing some people might say is something like, you know, Torji is not like some crazy AWPer, but even Brolan coming into this team has looked really good, and I actually expect that to continue. I think now that he's getting set up to be a star, I do think he'll be good. I don't know if he's the sort of player that strikes me as one who's going to step up in the crunch time moments, and that's the only thing that maybe makes this team a bit weaker. But I think they make up for that elsewhere in guys like Yimpat, who I have seen step up and be those big game players before, and even Exertion to an extent. I've actually seen him in really big series step up and carry this team, so I'm pretty happy putting Mouse there. And now this last spot is so open. Cloud9 are a team you can consider, but honestly, I wasn't as pressed as I wanted to be in the earlier stage. I felt like some of the individuals were missing shots they really shouldn't be. I feel like Boomich on the AWP, he's even said himself, is not something that's that reliable. They are a team that just have a good amount of firepower, and their structure's okay, but I don't think they impressed me enough to really put me through here, considering how strong some of these other squads are. Heroic, I actually think could be real consideration here. They looked very good in the previous stage, and Kixan just seems to do a solid enough job as an in-game leader to get the most out of all of his players, and a lot of these players are a little underrated on this team. You don't have like the massive names or the massive star firepower, but I think you have overall the core of a good enough team to make it through. And then Eternal Fire, listen, they were my sort of dark horses of the previous stage. I said I thought they might go 3-0. They didn't end up in the end. They didn't beat Heroic, but I was looking at some of their runs. I actually think they could have a fairly comfortable run through to the 2-2 matchup. And then from there, I could actually see them playing against, you know, someone like an Eternal Fire or maybe someone like a Na'Vi. And I don't think it's impossible that they win that. Even a Cloud9 game, actually. In one of the simulations I was doing, they might play Cloud9 in a 2-2 if it were to get there. That could be a really interesting game. I think I would maybe edge Eternal Fire in that one. I really think this is one where you can go kind of wherever your gut is going, wherever the wind is blowing you. And for me, in the matchups I was seeing, I might have slightly more faith in Heroic as a team, but I think based on the seeding, for some reason it looked like Eternal Fire were more likely to get an easier matchup. So that makes it tough. Cloud9 have the most experience, but I think they are the worst as a team overall. And I'm actually going to go with Eternal Fire. That might surprise some people, but yeah, I think they were good enough at the last stage. I liked what I saw, and yeah, that's a very close one, but I think those are the three you want to be considering. Now for 0-3. Okay, there are some tough calls here, because obviously we saw some of these Americas squads surprising us in the previous stage. But really, it comes down to, when you get down to the 0-2 matchups, who are we seeing there? I do think the Mongols are a team who are going to be down there. I think Imperial will probably be down there. I'm not going to lie, I think Furia might be down there. I hate to say it, but I actually think Furia might be down there. I don't think I'd pick Pain or Complexity, just because they play each other in the opening best of one, and that screams to me of a game that can go either way. I'd probably edge it to Pain, because they've actually been playing really solid fundamental CS, and the thing I was worried about was their individuals falling off, but they've actually been pretty good. And then Ecstatic, I don't think they're a team that will get any upsets. They might have the lowest firepower here, but their team play is really good, man. They look like a really structured team, and so I think in an 0-2 matchup, I would favor Ecstatic over a lot of these guys. Based on what I've just seen, I don't think Furia have what it takes. I just don't think the team play is there. And it pains me to say it because Yuri was playing well today. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I just see too many mistakes. I see too many silly rounds lost. And even in an 0-3 match, I don't know if they can make it through. And then the other one is Imperial or Mongols for me. I think there's a decent chance these two play each other in that losers match. Imperial's players have been playing really well at this event. I think the Mongols are the better team overall. But I just think Imperial might edge them based on the individuals. I do. And so I think I might put the Mongols 0-3. I hate to do it because I think they do still play pretty solid CS, but I just think the firepower is pretty weak. And I'd say Ecstatic are a better team overall than them, team play-wise and tactics-wise. So this is what I'm going with for my Pickems. We can still make it to a gold coin. It's not an ideal thing to say at this point, but hey, we'll see how we do. I think a lot of Pickems will be fairly similar to this, but let's see. We'll lock it in. The G2 belief. If you're a believer, come through with me. And other than that, let's hope we make it this time, boys, okay? We're going with the favorites now. Catch you next time.